Hey, fantasy role players. I'm reviewing Thor the Dark World. Now, I think this is going to be mainly a spoiler-free review. We'll see how I feel. For those of you who have missed lately updates with what's going on, Thor the Dark World is the sequel to Thor, of course, and this one is directed by Alan Taylor, who, frankly, I was not familiar with his name. He's done a lot of awesome TV work with a lot of shows I rather like, actually. So I was actually just checking him out on IMDb because I wasn't familiar with his work. And it stars pretty much the same cast, actually. The only real differences are the additions for this cast. We've got still Chris Hemsworth as Thor, Natalie Portman as Jane Foster, Tom Hiddleston as Loki, Anthony Hopkins, Rene Russo, Idris Elba is back as Heimdall. God, he's awesome. Kat Dennings as Darcy Lewis, and Stellan Skarsgård as Eric Selvig. And of course we have Christopher Eccleston as Melkink. Anyway, and of course we have Jamie Alexander as Sith, and the whole gang. I mean, pretty much like everybody who survived the last movie is in this movie. All right, what's going on? We pick up from the Avengers movie. I love this stuff. And Loki has been in prison for trying to take over Asgard and attacking Earth. Those two things really didn't go over well with the King. Anyway, he's imprisoned. Meanwhile, we get this backstory of the Dark Elf and Eccleston and the Dark Elves. Apparently, they're so evil. They're the enemies of the Keebler Elves. They make everything out of dark chocolate. They're evil. And well, anyway, the last time, I think 5,000 years ago, there was this alignment, which was the perfect opportunity to destroy and take over everything and turn everything to night with this kind of non-solid energy weapon that's kind of like, really hard to... It's not as lucid as, some kind of cannon or bomb or anything like that. So it's a fantastic weapon to use. Anyway, the king stops them, and they escape, and they go somewhere in space, waiting for the next opportunity. Well, that next opportunity happens now in London. Jane Foster discovers it, and she bonds with it. Meanwhile, the Dark Elves sense that it's back, so they go looking for it. She has it, so they invade Asgard and try to get it. Now, of course, their invasion fucks everything up, so Thor has no choice but to team up with Loki, of all people. Now, that's where I'll end there. So I'll just give some random thoughts. First off, everybody's great in this movie. There's not a bad performance in this movie. Everyone looks perfectly comfortable in their roles and in their characters. It's amazing. We've just had 2 films with most of the cast. Thor and Loki have also been in the Avengers, so those actors had that to kind of help work on their character relationships. The romance between Thor and Jane Foster, I think, works better in this film than it did in the previous film. One of the things I wouldn't say disliked, but one of the things I felt was a little off in the first film was it did feel like the Thor-Jane Foster relationship felt a bit forced, and I still feel that way. I love the film, but it still feels a little forced, like, oh, we need them to be in love, so, we can have this tragedy when he's stuck in Asgard and she's on Earth, and, oh, it's sad, but, they really didn't have that much together. So, it did feel a little, like, shoehorned in. This time around, it did feel a little bit more natural to me. And I think one of the things is the first film had what I like to call a establishment handicap going against it. And that's when you have a whole universe you're trying to pitch to people, and you spend a lot of the story explaining it and getting it established, just so everyone's comfortable and on board with what you're doing. So you, in context of the film, you spend a lot of screen time setting up, where maybe that could have been used for character or story. And the first X-Men film has this kind of problem. And I'm thinking in terms of my own personal experience as a writer, my first Red Knight story arc, I think, had a little bit of that going on. So I totally get that, and I'm going to call it the establishment handicap. So that's done. We have all this stuff and a other movie called The Avengers to kind of build off of. So, wow, this is, first off, the Thor-Loki relationship is excellent. Also with the parents as well. I love. There's a little more Rene Russo in this, and her relationship with Loki is in like maybe 2 really small scenes, really well established, and I do think helps build a lot of a character dynamic in this whole family that runs this incredible universe of Asgard. I think there's a lot of good transitions going back and forth. I thought the first film handled the transitions from the fantasy universes and our universe pretty well, but I think this one does it even better. The effects on the previous film that had it on Jane Foster and her crew are very visible, and I can definitely see the experiences. It's interesting to see how in these sequels you see the experiences have effects on the characters. Like, for instance, in Iron Man 3, you see the effects of the Avengers movie and how they've been playing out on Tony Stark and how it's really been messing with him. And at the beginning of Thor: The Dark World, you see what the experience of the previous Thor film has had on Jane Foster, and man, everything just seems so boring now that I've seen this whole universe before me, and I'm stuck here. Anyway, Darcy comes, it interrupts this date that is sadly going nowhere. The guy seems fine, she seems fine, but she doesn't want to be there. And they investigate this weird anomaly, which has these strange portals going back and forth, and the way they play around with it is very funny. Of course, her intern now has an intern, which Darcy keeps calling intern, which is pretty funny. He keeps, I think, constantly correcting her. My name's Ian. It's like, yeah, whatever, intern. Their relationship is really well played. One of the things I like is we got a ton of characters running around. This is the Thor movie, but we have a ton of characters running around. We have the Warriors 3. We have Loki. We have Thor. We have Jane Foster and Darcy and Eric and intern guy. We have all these characters running around, and it seems really balanced, where the whole plot seems to be working really effortlessly. Now, after looking at this director's filmography, I'm not that surprised. I mean, if he's done like Game of Thrones and Sopranos, he's used to working with cast in serial kind of stories. So I think that probably lent a lot of. He was able to bring a lot to the table as far as that's concerned. And I remember being not hearing about who he is and not being familiar with him. I was a little worried because when you aren't familiar with the director, you're not as confident. Although, granted, at least he wasn't a director that I was familiar with their work and maybe wasn't such a fan of, and that baggage wouldn't come along or something like that. Hold on. This is the Arnold Palmer tea. This is really good. So anyway, I think I'm gonna stop here because I don't want to really get too much into the plot spoilers. I don't want to do that to you. I will just run through a few things. The performances by everybody is just wonderful. the balance is just fantastic. Not just the characters, but the humor and the drama, and also the different variants of humor. Like, the humor in Asgard with Thor and Loki is one thing, and then the humor with Jane Foster and Darcy is terrific. I love the fact that Darcy is able to bring this kind of real world, modern kind of 20-something, snarkiness to balance, a lot of this classic Shakespearean epicness that's going on. And I think that's what helps kind of like ground this, so us mere mortals from Earth can enjoy this, if that makes any sense. And, Jane Foster's relationship with Darcy and with Thor and with Eric as well. I mean, all that seemed really good. And, of course, Tom Hiddleston is Loki. I mean, good lord, this guy is terrific. I mean, keep in mind, this is the guy we were rooting against and hating in the Avengers movie, and we're really worried for him in this film. That's one of the things I love so much about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is they are literally taking what we enjoy in the comics and bringing them to film, instead of like a mini trilogy or, okay, we're making sequels, but hey, we'll worry about the next one later. We're just putting everything into this one film, and we'll worry about the next one. Oh, we've killed half the cast. Well, we'll do something. This is really smart, and watching the Marvel Studios put these together, and I haven't seen them really make a big mistake yet. And not counting the Marvel films done by other studios. I'm talking about the Universal Disney Marvel Studios films. They've been, I mean, it's really fun and exciting. And I also love the fact that, yeah, this is the same universe, the Iron Man movies and the Captain America movies. I don't know. It's really wonderful. I also enjoyed the 2 end scenes. I think they were surprisingly very helpful. They weren't like, just, end scenes. And this goes to even the Marvel films that aren't done by Marvel Studios, because the Fox X-Men movies are like this, where they have an end scene or something like that behind. And they're like, yeah, that's okay. Guess I'm glad I stuck around to see that, but I'm really glad I stuck around to see this. I don't understand anybody who goes to one of these Marvel Universe movies and doesn't stay through the credits. I mean, is it that much more important to get to your car and beat the traffic than to wait 2 more minutes to see something that's going to be helpful for the next film? I mean, I thought everyone was on board with this whole thing. I mean, I constantly see people leave, and it's like, no, you know what? I'm staying until the copyright, just to be on the safe side. I think that's a good policy anyway. Let's do that with every film we see. I don't care. This is a Woody Allen film. I am waiting. I'm sure there's something happening. Alright, I'm going to stick there without getting into too many details because I don't want to spoil anything. I highly recommend this film. I think it's excellent. 5 RAM chips. I think it's better than the first film. And it might be the best comic film of the year, maybe? I don't know if it's a little early to say that. Maybe I'm still in the glow of the movie, but I really did enjoy it, and I think you should check it out. Push the button, Lindsay.